Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Crash, and today we're taking a look at the brand new batch of manga in weekly Shounen Jump and judging each of them by their first chapter. So this new batch counts 4 new manga and I'm very excited about them, so I'll be recording each part after the chapter comes out. So the video should be up about a month after this first part is recorded. And the first manga we'll be talking about is one I've been very hyped about, the Elusive Samurai by Yuusei Matsui. Now, Matsui Sensei belongs to a very small group of authors in Jump where I like multiple works that they did. He's of course more famous for his 2012 manga Assassination Classroom, a fantastic manga about a bunch of students trying to kill his immortal and overpowered creature that happens to be their teacher. But my favorite manga from Matsui is 2005's Majin Tantei no Kami Nero, which is one of my all-time favorite Jump manga. But by the time that this video goes up, I should have another video where I talk about that one more in depth, but at the very least should be up soon. So if you're watching this video after that one has been released, I'll have a card pop up on the upper right corner and you can check it out if you want. I talk about Nero and 4 other Jump manga I think are pretty overlooked or underrated. But the Elusive Samurai. Upon first glance, there's 2 things that really stand out to me. The first one is the art style. It's not too different from Assassination Classroom, but the author definitely has been slowly improving his style, especially if you compare it to Nero's art, and I just want to acknowledge and give props to him for his growth. The second thing is the main character, the Elusive Samurai Takeyuki. He looks far more standard and grounded in reality when compared to Koro-sensei and Nero. He reminds me of Nagisaga actually. And I think in general, a lot of designs remind me of Vast Class designs. The style is definitely the same. But not only is the main character's design grounded more in reality, the premise of the story is too. Which saddens me a bit because Matsui Sensei's other works really had insane premises, and that was one of the reasons why I loved it. And, at least from chapter 1, that does not seem to be the case here. So, Takeyuki is a prince that is very good at sneaking around and evading and running. He's basically a rough character with all the stats maxed up. But because his skills are basically running away, he's not considered a very heroic character, especially when compared to Ashikaga, which is the first character to appear in the actual non-color pages portion of the story. And Ashikaga is basically your traditional type of historical hero. Being in multiple wars, he's buffed and strong, and is a lead character, is basically loved by everyone around him, including our young Takeyuki. And it's exactly this duality that seems to be the theme not only of this chapter, but I'm assuming the entire manga as well. Because of the events that happen in the second half of this chapter, I'm assuming Ashikaga is going to be the main and possibly final villain of this series. At least thematically, it seems to be what Matsui is going for. So the manga basically spends a few pages exploring the characters of this city, and the one that I think we should focus on is the priest, Suwa, which claims to be able to see the future, and that in 10 years Takeyuki is going to be a hero who shakes heaven. And after a little shot between Takeyuki and his brother while they play ball, we get one of the weirdest pages or transitions I've seen in a while. It's a full page where you're basically told that everyone died. Brother got decapitated, father is dead as well, and the girl that liked our main character, raped and murdered. The thing about this page is that it comes out of nowhere and explains nothing. And sure, they do explain a couple pages later what happened, but the shock hits me, which I'm assuming it's the point, but the confusion hits me so hard that I'm not even caring about these characters. I'm just whiplashed by the switch. And it turns out that it was Ashikaga that betrayed the country and is now the ruler, and the prince basically needs to use his skills to escape and run away. And it does it so with the help of Suwa and his assistant. Suwa declares that Takeyuki is going to need to find comrades and a military force to help him get his country back. And that's where the chapter ends, setting up a revenge story in what may be a battle shonen from here on out. Battle shonen more grounded in reality, like I mentioned before, which is an interesting concept, especially with the historical theme. And, well, this entire chapter was more of a setup than anything else, and as a setup chapter, I think it's great. I think it's the kind of chapter that we'll be recalling at the final phases of this manga. But before I make a proper judgment of this manga, I think we need more time to establish the characters better. Toriyuki is not a striking main character, and I think we need to explore him a bit more the following chapters. And I think we need a better notion of what's happening in the immediate future, not on the final phase of the manga, which are things I'm hoping for chapter 2 of the Elusive Samurai. No, hello. We are here to talk about High Tail C, which is the worst title, just in general. This one is written by Keisuke Inaoka, which isn't necessarily a rookie either. They don't have the same level of notoriety as the mangaka they're being squished between, but the mangaka has been in Weekly Shonen Jump before with Kimi wo Shinryaku Seiyo, which was a cancelled manga that ran for 31 chapters back in 2018. And last year Kasuka also released Bunkitan, which is a volume-long manga that ran in Shounen Jump Plus. Not sure if that one was cancelled or not, but the mangaka is back again with this manga right here. Now, ITLC is a mystery crime manga, and I really like those. Detective Conan, Nero, again, Phoenix Wright, Danganronpa. But in this first chapter, I don't think this manga hits that genre as well as I'd want to, but I'll get to that in a little bit. The manga starts with the news of the death of an actress, and we meet our central character for the chapter, an actor that, of course, knew the victim. The victim was said to have a stalker, and it seems that the stalker as picked him as her next victim. This is the premise of the first chapter. We then meet our actual main characters, which are these two detectives. There is actually very little to say about them as of chapter 1, because the focus is very much on another character. But before I talk about that, I'm going to reveal a plot twist of chapter 1. So if you want to go in blind, I recommend stopping the video, reading it. It takes only a few minutes, and then come back. Okay? Okay, cool. So, the plot twist is that the stalker is actually the true main character of the story. She is actually a detective that falls in love and stalks criminals, and the reason why she was stalking the other was because he's the murderer and the original stalker. First things first, the plot twist of him being the killer was something that didn't surprise me in the least. I was completely expecting the stalker to be a red herring, and there were a couple of hints of the detective suspecting him. This chapter didn't give me that haha moment, which I think is the coolest part of the mystery novels. It's giving you the clues that you need to figure out what happened, and having that moment in the end where the detective kind of fits everything together and everything starts to make sense, and it's super cool. That's how Detective Conan can last 1,000 chapters and still be fun to read. But the clues that you're given, even when the detective is explaining, really don't tell you who did it. The piece of evidence that incriminated the guy just pops up after the fact. The reason why I figured it was the actor that was the culprit was because I've seen enough of these plots to reach a conclusion that being the stalker would be too obvious. So I really hope they improve in that aspect of the crimes in the following chapters. With that said, the plot twist of the girl being the main character was really well done. That I didn't see coming. The way that she solves the crime just because she's attracted to criminals, which is due to Stockholm Syndrome, as they explain that she was abducted and fell in love with the kidnapper, and her love is more of an association with him than anything else. We also learned that the kidnapper is still at large, so that will be the overarching story of this manga, I'm assuming at least. It's a fun twist on the genre, and I want to see what they do with it. Having a more dynamic, interesting crimes and using this character to her full potential is what will ensure that this manga stays in the magazine. As a final note, I want to say that the art style reminds me a lot of Phantom Seer, and that's not a bad thing, it's just a thing that I wanted to put out there. Now, the third manga is by another big name. Witch Watch was written and drawn by Kenta Shinohara, who had a big success in Weekly Shounen Jump before in the form of Sket Dance all the way back to 2007. But more recently, he also wrote Kanata no Astra in 2016 for Shounen Jump Plus. I only read Astra yet, but I'm aware that he is a comedy writer, and that is present in Astra in some form, and that seems to come back in Witch Watch. So the manga starts with our main character, Morihito, being beaten by a bunch of delinquents, that at first glance may seem just one-off characters, but by the relevance of Momoto later on, I'm going to assume he's actually going to be a regular side character from here on out. Anyways, it's revealed in a conversation with his dad that Morihito did not fight back because he's actually super strong since he's an ogre. In the same conversation, it's also revealed that he's been assigned to be a familiar of Niku, a witch he was friends with when they were kids. There's two reasons why he should accept it. One is that if he doesn't, he might be turned into a horrible creature. The other, which is only shown by the end of the chapter, is because it has been prophesied that Niku will suffer a disaster in the next year. The only way to ward off such disaster is by virtue of her familiar. With that in mind, these two are going to be living alone together. This is the foundation of Witch Watch, and it's fine. It's not a plot that it's too out there or innovative, especially when compared to the other two manga of the batch so far, but it does leave you with a mystery to solve, which is a nice add-on. But this isn't a manga that will survive on the back of its premise. This is a rom-com blended with other genres, so the important thing is how the main casts are together. And this is what the second half of the first chapter is all about. And honestly, it's good. The base of a serious guy in form of Morihito and the comedic klutz in form of Niku is not in any way, shape or form new, but that's a storytelling trope that has been around for centuries for a reason. It works. And of course the highlight of the chapter was definitely Niku. The way that she's just infatuated by Norihito and how she tries to show off her skills leads us up to the best moments of this chapter. The rest of the gags were fine, but the 2D Niku just cracked me up in a way that none of the other manga of the batch so far have done. Other than that, there really isn't much to say here. So far it seems like it's going to blend within the same target audience as Ayakashi Triangle, but not necessarily the same target audience, as this is not an ecchi at all, but that mix of rom-com with supernatural elements to it. And I am all up for Witch Watch, because Ayakashi's Triangle still isn't doing it for me. The fourth and final manga is finally a sports manga. Now, when IQ ended, it was the first time in Jump's history that we didn't have a sports manga in the magazine. Beast Children could have been the one had it not been axed very early, but that shows that Jump doesn't really have any problem in axing manga, even if they appeal to a niche they need to fill. With that said, I have way more hopes for 9 Dragons Ball Parade after chapter 1 than I think I ever did for Beast Children. Now, the writer for Ball Parade, Mikiyasu Kamada, is a complete newbie with only a couple of one-shots on his belt, apparently all about baseball as well. But the artist Ashibi Fukui has been in the business for around 10 years, penning a bunch of manga, and a lot of them also sports, like Hano Natsu, another baseball manga run in Shonen Sunday in 2019. We follow a random kid with glasses whose dream is to enter Akuo's high school baseball team, which is one of the best teams in Japan. The fourth chapter is the tryouts for this team, and that puts this manga in this awkward position where the dream of the character will happen at the end of chapter 1, which makes it so that they must get a new goal either by the end of the chapter or the next couple. The most obvious one would be to win the championship, but let's hold that thought just a little bit, because we do have a little twist by the end of the chapter. Random Kid isn't like the main character of most sports manga that I personally read, where they have raw talent, but they're pretty bad because they are new to it. By the time the manga starts, Azukira, that's his name, I'm tired of this joke, already has spent years owning his skill and has been since turned into a pretty average player. It's not bad, but it's clear that he isn't one of the best players around, but he is a very decent catcher at the very least. His true strong point, however, is a bit reminiscent of Deku from My Hero Academia. He studies his opponent and knows pretty much every strong and weak point, and he can strategize the best way to defeat them, which he uses in the second half of this chapter. But in the first half, we meet Tao Ryudo, the other main character of this series. Tao is quite different from Azukira. He seems to have the experience and raw talent to be a great player and an even better pitcher, but he seems to be too lazy to pay attention to anything else. When it shows a lack of understanding of how the tryouts would be, it's Azukira who ends up helping him out. And of course, it's this duo as pitcher and catcher that end up getting the win for the team in the tryout game. Sasukita used his experience to tell exactly what Ryudo should do, and both of them end up carrying their team. The plot twist comes in the end, when it's revealed Azukita isn't picked to join the team. When it's revealed why, they tell him that they already have a specialist team whose entire job is exactly to explore the opponent's team and come up with strategies. They don't need his strength. What I like about this is that it doesn't devalue our main character. He's still very strong in that one aspect, but the team doesn't need that. That's all. With that said, this is one of the very few cases where I see the goal of the character be completely destroyed in the first chapter. Because he's not going to join that team later on, that's made clear, and even clearer when Ryudo quits the team to stay with Azukita. In the final pages, it's him who declares the next goal, to join forces to make the best team ever. Now, I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, at what school they're going to join, but it did get me interested because I'm assuming that they might join a broken team similar to IQ, of which there is enough influence sparkle throughout the manga. I really do think this one has a high chance to last, and that's true for all of the batch so far. It's really the most solid one I've seen so far. My favorites may just be the last two. I am still very excited about the Elusive Samurai, but Witch Watch was the one that made me laugh the most, and I've been getting more into sports manga lately, so 9 Dragons Ball Parade does scratch that itch. I tell has some things I'm not as invested into yet, but the main character is definitely interesting enough to keep me reading. But what are your thoughts? Which one is your favorite? Do leave your opinions in the comments below, as I am very curious to know if everyone is as excited about this batch as me. And if you like this video, you know what buttons to click. I'm trying to reach 200 subscribers by the end of the month, and I know you'd be a great addition to the team if you're not part of it yet. And if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.